about that. The government is paying for healthcare and drugs for foreigners. So what's the justification for that? That seems weird. And like a lot of money for that kind of stuff is going out the door. People are not happy about that. Peel City Council has been taken over by assets. They're trying to make it so they can remove a city councillor if the city councillor says something they don't like, and then prevent that person from running again in the next council election. So that's, I mean, a full-blown takeover of democracy. And holy smokeronies, Saskatchewan had their election, and we're going to start there because it's going to take me 10 seconds to show you what happened. Scott Moe won. That's it. And then we're going to go into looking at the sordid details of the ongoing BC election. John Rustad, I don't know what the, I don't know. I am kind of upset about the whole thing. I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what his advisors are thinking. I have absolutely no idea what kind of batshit crazy person told him to concede the race, but he did on Twitter yesterday night. And I'll show that to you. And the rest of it is just so bonkers. Yesterday as well, the other big news, of course, is that the 3 or 4 people, including one Trudeau cabinet minister, has been named as Chinese assets, unwittingly, of course. And so we'll have a look at that. Spoiler alert, Mary Ng is one of them, and Dave Eby is implicated. So that's BC, China, and the BC connection, or excuse me, Eby, China, and the BC connection. I'll come up with something better. And fundamentally, it is an unbelievable story that could only happen in Canada, I guess. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we got to start in Saskatchewan because Saskatchewan seems sane. Robert Fife says Saskatchewan party wins majority government. Scott Moe reelected. Oh, cool. What's the difference between Saskatchewan and British Columbia? They're hand counting in Saskatchewan. So says SaskGlass. We were counting by hand and it took no time at all. So Saskatchewan party has 34 seats, and the New Democrats, I don't know how the New Democrats can get any seats at all. Honestly, these people are batshit lunatics. They are crazy, and I wouldn't want to have anything to do with them. It's absolutely insane. Honestly. So there's a lot going on. We're going to start with, this thing, we're going to have a little waylay to look at Mary Ng. But most of this is about Dave Eby until we break into other countries and then go federal. But fundamentally, what's going on with China is that China seems to be in control of multiple provincial governments and the federal government through multiple different channels. And they have Chinese police stations and a whole lot more control than anybody would really suspect, but you can feel it. And I've been talking about Canada living under occupation for a while. I think that we are living in a situation where the leaders don't care. They're stealing our money. They're sending it to Ukraine for wars. They're sending it to continue foreign wars. They're destroying our reputation on the international stage, India, the United States, and more, and Russia, and all sorts of other problems that are being caused. And what could be doing that, right? And could it be a foreign interference in our government that's causing Canada to shoot itself in the face over and over and over again? It's possible. It's maybe even plausible considering what we're learning. Here is Yak Stack, and this is Sheldon Y. Yawachek. I'm getting it terribly wrong. Anyway, and he's talking about BC and David Eby, and he says, David Eby is tied to Chinese corruption. He appears to be. For months, I'm just going to read a couple of choice snippets from this. The link is in the description. You should check it out if you're interested. You see, for months, the leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, who's been co-aligned with the Liberals through a supply and confidence agreement, and still is, despite the fact that he's claimed to have shredded the agreement, has signed the NDA and has had information from the NSCOP report. What we learned today is that one of the BC NDP Premier Dave Eby's advisors, a journalist, Xing Guo, is linked to the Chinese foreign interference through a group called Canada Committee 100 Society. And so there's a lot of things that have happened. And so I think this is accurate. And although not exactly, I don't think it's as cut and dry as this is laid out, but I think this is accurate. By sitting on this information, so by reading the NSCOP report, understanding that these people are influenced by China and not saying anything, he's allowed these things to happen. And anybody who's read this report, so Elizabeth May, Justin Trudeau, Jagmeet Singh, all of these people are aware of this and doing nothing at all whatsoever. So Basically, by sitting on this information and allowing the most corrupt election in the history of Canada to go on provincially over the last couple of months, and especially during polling where counts took an additional 8 days, seems to be even more corrupt than just the BC NDP trying to get BC Conservatives to change their name despite the fact that the ballots had already been printed, allowing union access to publicly support the NDP, allowing phone-in voting. That was all Eby when he brought that law in 2019, and then he became the premier. Allowing phone-in voting, I think again that was brought in by Eby. Closing down polling stations due to rain, using tabulators where 49,000 mail-in votes were not tabulated, finding an additional 17,000 ballots, 17,000 ballots prior to counting the 49,000, taking an additional week to count these 65,000 ballots, almost 70% of the mail-in ballots ending up siding for the NDP, letting staff take ballots home, dismissal of recount requests, no transparency into Election BC, recruiting salaried staff in the 93 ridings by way of name, job, or function. So there's lots of problems there. So here's the summary. It goes like this, he says. The Liberals sat on CSIS reports, completely ignoring them until a whistleblower leaked them to the press. Trudeau needed to cover his ass, created a security clearance that required an NDA to read the reports. When outcry came to release the names, Justin Trudeau stalled by having an investigation done by a family friend, Johnston, who absolutely would not name names because he'd also be implicated in the connections with the Conservative senator whose name was on the list. This has stalled so long that the Conservative senator was forced into mandatory retirement. Dave Eby never got named. The most corrupt provincial election in Canada took place, and now we have a Chinese asset as premier of the province. Honestly, I don't see how the election results in BC can stand now that this has all come into public light, and the British Columbians really ought to be taking to the streets with pitchforks and torches, demanding heads on platters. Given that New Brunswick just had an election, which seems fishy, and Saskatchewan is in the process, and Nova Scotia is having one just called an early election, unless we get the rest of the names listed or the full NSCOP report declassified, all elections at this point are questionable and should be assumed to be corrupted. Yes. So the issue with that is there are people who will want to hold these people accountable no matter what they say, and there are people who want to say, oh, it's not that bad, it's not that bad. And the people who say it's not that bad, enable this crap to continue, I think. Ryan Garrettson is sharing this. My goodness. I think we're gonna play at least 3 minutes of this. This is Sam Cooper. This is his information, and he's laying it out there from advisors to Eby to the 4 Chinese assets. We'll listen to as much of this that makes sense. It's important. Here we go.
Firstly, my book recounts reporting on a 2020 tape recording provided to me, where Senator Yuen Pao Wu is heard in a 47-minute private briefing with the Canada Committee 100 Society. This group included Conservative Senator Victor O as an advisory member, along with an individual officially listed in a Chinese United Front Overseas Leaders Group. The Canada Committee 100 Society is led in Vancouver by Ding Guo, a journalist who is also an advisor to British Columbia Premier David Eby. Other journalists participating in this tape-recorded meeting with Senator Wu later supported Liberal candidate Parm Bains in 2021. Bains had told these journalists he opposed Kenny Chu's Foreign Agent Registry Bill, describing it as an exclusionary policy. Ding Guo was also reportedly involved in the 2022 Conservative Party leadership race, alongside community leaders officially connected to Beijing's overseas influence arm, the United Front. I can provide more details later on how this should illuminate NSI COP 2024. In the taped meeting, attendees asked Senator Wu about his stance regarding United Front Work Department community group activities in Canada. These groups, according to CSIS, are central to targeting Canadian politicians for influence and election interference. Senator Wu expressed his concerns about Canada's focus on United Front groups, stating, "Whether you belong to an organization that happens to be listed as a United Front organization should not be a litmus test," and added, "I am fighting very hard against that type of litmus test." In Willful Blindness 3rd edition update, I write, "In a way, Senator Wu's intervention in the Hague Commission seemed to fulfill his taped pledge to the United Front. He repeatedly filed submissions undermining Canadian intelligence and using Chinese intelligence talking points. My confidence that he appeared to act for Beijing was bolstered by information from a person I call Confidential Source 1, who confirmed that Senator Wu, appointed by Justin Trudeau, was under CSIS investigation. Confidential Source 2 also repeatedly stressed that Conservative Senator Victor O, an advisor to the Canada Committee 100 Society, was a significant target in CSIS's investigation into federal election interference. In Willful Blindness, I write about investigations that began in early 2019. I write, according to 3 national security sources, Liberal Cabinet Minister Mary Ng was identified in CSIS investigations as one of 11 Toronto area candidates clandestinely supported by Chinese consulate and United Front influence networks in the 2019 election. CSIS assessed that Mary Ng was unwittingly implicated in this interference network. Despite my requests, Mary Ng and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's office never responded for comment. As I write in Willful Blindness, Mary Ng was one of the key Ontario Liberal government staffers who moved to Ottawa with Trudeau, alongside more high-profile advisors like Katie Telford and Gerald Butts. 2 national security sources indicated that a specific CSIS concern was Ng's staff allegedly meeting privately with a Toronto consulate diplomat to consult on China-related issues. CSIS identified this diplomat, Zhou Wei, as a confirmed intelligence actor. According to one source, quote, "We believe Zhou Wei worked with political staffers to provide information on meetings of elected officials and their whereabouts. We know staff have direction to report privately to the consulate on Mary Ng," end quote. This is a critical detail hinted at in the Hogue Commission's initial report, which...
Sorry, but to go long like that, but it's super important, right? Bruce McGonigal says Dave Eby's friend from Rise Media, Ding Go, is publicly named as being linked to Chinese foreign interference group. We need answers right now as to what impact Ding Go has on the Chinese diaspora in British Columbia and why him and David Eby are so close. Why was this not brought up during the election campaign? Real Andy Lee did a great job exposing this. See comments. So you can go on that dig if you're interested. Sheila Gunn-Reid says it all makes sense now. The allegations of sexual impropriety against Kevin Vung, which saw his ouster from the Liberal Party, were most likely a disinformation campaign by the CCP for his anti-CCP stance. So the Liberal Party is 100% on side with all of what China wants to do, right? And they use Chinese talking points to justify it. Andy Lee says foreign interference press conference, Senators Wu and O named along with 3 Liberal MPs, Parm Baines and Mary Ng. So there you go. There's lots of things going on there. We'll just have a quick detour before we come back to Dave Eby. But Tyler says Mary Ng unwittingly participated. She's the victim, of course. Let's see if she has one of those Chinese police stations in her riding. Oh, she does. She's a member of the Liberal Party of Canada and has been a member of Parliament for the riding of Markham Thornhill since 2017. Chinese police stations listed in Markham and Scarborough. So here's the article. So we've had Chinese assets all through our government for a very long time. A very long time. 2017, probably before that. 2014, probably before that. So pretty wild stuff. RCMP looking into so-called Chinese police stations in the Toronto area, and this is from 2022, right? So Mary Ng is looking the other way, not worried about the Chinese police stations because, you know, she's unwittingly being helped by the Chinese. Unwittingly, completely unwittingly. Does she speak fluent Cantonese? Yes? Oh, totally unwittingly, right? She has no idea. Gov.exe is corrupt, says, until charges have been laid and arrests have been made, nothing that came out of today's foreign interference briefing means anything. He's right about that. Chris says, after today's press conference on foreign interference with Sam Cooper and others, do you believe the British Columbia Premier David Eby is a Chinese asset? 1,558 votes and a couple of days left, but 97% say seems like it, yes. And 2.4% say, no, I don't see what you mean. I don't know what you're talking about. John Rustad, after all of this, last night at what time? 10:30 p.m. He posts this. I woke up this morning and I was like, I can't even right now. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? John Rustad says, We've made history in British Columbia. Just 18 months ago, the Conservative Party of British Columbia was 2% in the polls, had no members, no money, and no team. But what we did have was grit, determination, and massive grassroots movement that would make the impossible happen. I'm immensely proud to lead a party that went from 0 seats to 44 and almost government in just a year. This is unprecedented in our history. We could do this in Ontario. I need 124 candidates. That's what we need. Anyway, this is unprecedented in our history. However, we still have work ahead of us. I want to express my gratitude to every British Columbian who participated in this election and voted. Your engagement in our democratic process is invaluable. I accept the results of this election. I thank our Elections BC workers for their hard and dedicated work. While there are still judicial recounts to be completed, it's now clear that our party will not win enough seats to form government in BC. I am ready to begin the important work of leading BC's official opposition. BC's Conservative Caucus is committed to holding government accountable and advocating for policies that reflect the best interests of all British Columbians. Together, we will work tirelessly to ensure that your voices are heard and that we build a stronger future for all of BC. Thank you to over 900,000 BC voters for your trust and support. I look forward to serving you and all British Columbians. Together, we made history in British Columbia. What an idiot. What an idiot. The only tweet I'd put out is, when we flush out the Chinese traitors in government, we may need to run another election and we'll do it on paper ballots next time. Like, what is this nonsense? Weak. Are you a Chinese asset? Weak. Honestly, what in the hell is that? I'm ridiculous, John. Ridiculous. Geraldine says, what did Eby know and when did he know it? Advisor to BC Premier Eby named as CCP collaborator. John Rustad couldn't make any political hay out of this. He couldn't talk about this. 4 years of being led by Dave Eby because Rustad concedes after all of this comes out? Moron. Rob Logan says, interesting. Dave Eby's advisor has been outed for CCP foreign interference. Should that not disqualify Eby? Danish Canadian says, Richard Z care to comment on Ding Guo's advisor to BC Premier on CCP foreign interference, thinking this plays a role in the election. Well, not anymore because Rustad just blew that up, I guess, right? That's pretty wild stuff. Honestly, what an idiot. Sorry, I moved things out of the way. Vote Canada says Premier Eby's association with Ding Guo, also known as David Ding, has cast a shadow over British Columbia's political landscape, revealing a deep and troubling connections with what appears to be a sophisticated network of foreign interference. This relationship between Eby and Ding, who has been publicly named as linked to a Chinese foreign interference group, raises serious questions about the integrity of the provincial politics and the influence of foreign entities on local governance. The story begins with Ding's activities on WeChat, a platform where he has cultivated a significant following among the Chinese diaspora in BC. On May 16, 2023, it was reported that Ding was actively shaping narratives to favor Eby, particularly in how the Premier's stance on sensitive issues were portrayed. This manipulation was evident when Ding twisted Eby's public statements about CSIS documents related to foreign interference in the Vancouver municipal election of 22, while Eby expressed concerns about these findings. Ding spun this into a narrative of Eby defending the community against alleged racism, a narrative likely designed to garner support and deflect criticism. Ding's actions seem to align closely with Beijing's interests, as evidenced by his commentary on Vancouver's potential sister city relationship with Kaohsiung, Taiwan. I'm getting that wrong. In his November 2021 article, Ding criticized the move, suggesting it would tear the community apart and essentially echoing the Chinese consulate's stance against recognizing Taiwan diplomatically. This not only shows Ding's alignment with CCP narratives, but also his readiness to influence local political decisions in favor of foreign policy objectives. Moreover, Ding's history of attacking Canadian journalists and media as racist or biased when they report on Chinese interference further muddies the waters of public discourse, potentially silencing critical voices through accusations of xenophobia. His support for figures like MP Han Dong amidst allegations of foreign interference indicates a pattern where Ding acts as a mouthpiece to defend those accused of being influenced or working with foreign entities. The most alarming aspect is Eby's apparent endorsement of Ding, not just through association, but by attending events hosted by Ding's Canada Committee 100 Society. Here, Eby and the other NDP members were present at the launch of Ding's book, which notably omitted the Tiananmen Square massacre, aligning with CCP censorship norms. This omission, coupled with Eby's close relationship with Ding, suggests either a severe lack of due diligence or tacit acceptance of the narratives that serve foreign interests over locally democratic integrity. The web of connections doesn't stop at Ding. The implication of such relationships extend to how political campaigns are run with Ding's activities potentially influencing voter perceptions and political outcomes. The failure to address these connections during election campaigns points to either negligence or complicity in allowing foreign interference to seep into the heart of BC's political process. The scenario paints a picture of organized corruption where political figures might be wittingly or unwittingly aiding in the erosion of local sovereignty through foreign-backed narratives and influence. The lack of transparency, the manipulation of community sentiment, and the apparent protection of individuals linked to foreign agendas within the political sphere of British Columbia demand immediate and thorough investigation. The integrity of elections, the autonomy of local governance, and the trust in public figures are at stake, with the strings leading back to a figure like Ding positioned with access to influence and seemingly impunity. So yeah, looks bad. Looks not so good, right? Chris says Senators Wu and Oh leading protests to oppose having to register as foreign agents. So heck no, we're not going to do that stuff. But you got to wear your mask and make sure you get vaccinated or you're going to lose your job. Right? Vesper says, hey, Real Andy Lee, did anyone consider one of the unknown 7 might be this Liberal MP that was siding with Victor O in June of last year? He says, wait again, this was NP 2023. Weren't these 3 crying racism for wanting a domestic foreign registry? Yen Pao Wu, Victor O, and Liberal MP, which one? Aria? Is it possible Chandra is one of the 7, perhaps? Perhaps. Sure, plausible. Sheldon again says Trudeau's full of it. Of the 4 names that dropped this morning in the Kevin Vung press conference, Senator Wu is a Liberal, Mary Ing's a Liberal, Parm Baines is a Liberal, Victor O is a Conservative, and he's the one who's already retired, right? So very interesting. Nobody's interested in hearing about it at all or asking questions. Zach Tisdale says it's fair to assume all federal MPs are traitors until we get the full proper list of names. When we do get the actual list of names, it's time to deport them or put them in jail. Yes, and investigate them. Kevin Vung says a lot of attempts to access my email in the last 12 hours. Was it something I did? So lots of people trying to sign into his email. I'm glad he's got 2-factor authentication on. Gov.exe says, raise your hand if you know there's a connection between the Epstein list, the Diddy files, and foreign interference. And Justin Trudeau's got his hand up right there because, well, he's probably on a lot of those lists, don't you think? Maybe. Sean says, instead of simply counting the votes in British Columbia, I want to see each and every mail-in vote verified as authentic prior to being counted. How many would be deemed invalid? So apparently the BC NDP, this is funny because the whole point, if you don't know, of Hammer and Scorecard, which I've been talking about this a lot and I hammer this down all the time, but the whole point is to keep it really, really close so they can reconcile the race afterwards, right? So in Surrey Guildford, the NDP candidate got 8,843 votes. The Conservative Party candidate got 8,829 votes. Oh man, razor thin. Shucks darn that your candidate lost, eh? Maybe next time, but that's a win. Win's win, right? So, can't take it away from us, I guess, because John Rustad said, I accept this result. Bullshit. Global News is reporting the Bloc Québécois is poised to begin talks with other parties to bring down the minority Liberal government, which has not met its deadline to pass 2 key bills. So if any of the backbenching Liberals wanted to bring down this government, now's the time, right? Wait until the optimum, or what does Jack Sparrow say? Wait until the optimum moment, right? Now, because if you don't, it could be, worse. You have to deal with another year of this nonsense and being quiet about it, right? And I mean, the Chinese interference is, I think, a big deal. Maxime Bernier, talking about federal elections, is talking about what he thinks is the most important thing. And I would tend to agree with him. Maxime Bernier and the People's Party of Canada are calling for a complete immigration moratorium. Do you support his position? So yes. So here's Bernier doing a presser.
By instituting a complete moratorium on immigration. A complete moratorium. A moratorium for as long as it takes on the number of permanent residents we accept, until the housing market and other problems caused by mass immigration are back to normal or under control. And we must also substantially lower the number of foreign workers, international students, and refugees in Canada in order to preserve our way of life.
Except maybe with the until part, right? He says we have to lower the number until things are back to normal, things are under control. I don't think there's any like we can go back to this. I think that going back to this, I don't want a situation where the government steals our tax dollars and funds an invasion of replacement people for the country. I don't ever want to go back to that. That's a terrible, awful outcome. And we should abolish the government that has done that to us because they're criminals. Jonathan K says, are we back to the abortion thing? I guess now that gender wang and immigration have been removed from the liberal agropop cycle, the cycle time is shortening. So yeah, it's interesting. Katie Telford says, a former conservative MP who says he left the party because of his convictions claim that the number of anti-abortion conservative members of parliament is growing. Abortion is killing a baby, and I think that the Canadians deserve better than a government that wants to kill their babies. It's that simple. The government is prioritizing importing foreigners who don't share your culture over empowering women to build their families. And we should be empowering women and men to have babies, have lots and lots of babies, because honestly, it's the meaning of life, right? Like Jeepers Creepers. So, yeah, they want to kill babies, and they're saying, reframing it as women's healthcare. And it's not women's healthcare. It's just murder. It's just murder. It doesn't have anything to do with healthcare other than they're using a doctor to commit the murder, right? Pierre Polyev says, axe the sales tax on homes. You will pay no GST on a new home if under $1 million, saving up to $50,000. Check it out. And so it's a big policy. So says Dan, this is a bold tax change and we'll see more homes built. Let's have a carbon tax election and build the homes. So immigration election, carbon tax election. What's your choice? What's your thing that you want? Andrew Lawton says, shocker, not. Justin Trudeau's election debate bureaucracy has selected CBC to produce the official election leaders debates. So Maxime Bernier won't be allowed to attend. Or if he is allowed to attend, everybody will be allowed to talk over him and yell at him. And the whole debate will just be browbeating Maxime Bernier about how racist he is. So like, yay. I mean, that's what happened last time anyway. Here is Terry, and he says, you would think CTV News, this is speech and censorship, and it's very, very robust, the censorship machine in Canada. And Terry says, you would think that the CTV News and CBC News would have broadcast this press conference, but no, they'd rather have the traitors are protected and that Canadians are kept in the dark like mushrooms. In America, they would have been arrested and sentenced to life in prison for treason. Yeah, there's still time. We could definitely do that. I hope we do that, but it doesn't seem that we're going to do it. It doesn't seem like that at all. Tom Quiggin says mainstream media fail. The mainstream media doesn't work for the citizens. Who they work for is the propaganda arm of the government who's paying them. That's their biggest customer. And they make a lot of money. So like they're happy with that, billions of dollars, bonuses for everybody. They don't even have to put on programming. Nobody watches. They just take all the money and they don't care, right? So like it's not a fail. It's working as intended, right? The mainstream media in Canada is a multi-billion-dollar operation, yet it falls to self-financed citizen journalist Sam Cooper to break what might be the biggest political story of the year in Canada. Why did CBC, CTV, and Global even exist at this point? They're not going to exist for much longer, because if Polyev gets in, and he might not be worth his salt, but if he's worth his salt in what he's saying, he's going to defund all of this crap from the government, federal government anyway. And so they won't be able to exist. And then we'll have a new media landscape in Canada, which will be interesting. Maybe my show will get more viewers. Who knows? No, they'll make X illegal too. So if Polyev gets in, he hasn't indicated that he'd make X illegal, but they're trying to kill it in the States. So if Kamala gets in and they end up killing X, well, the show will be a little thinner. Keith says, with all the info that Kevin Vung and Sam Cooper have brought up, only one journalist asked a question? One? Where's our media? The media doesn't work for us. That one media outlet that asked a question just got defunded, right? Like it's Jeepers Creepers. Alexandros says YouTube does not return the link to the full Joe Rogan Trump interview, no matter how I try to search for it. There is no sensible explanation for this, and if it's deliberate, Google is overtly interfering with the elections. YouTube, this needs to be fixed immediately. Yeah. Yep. Tucker Carlson, this is a form of censorship. So they're going to try and do a hit piece on Tucker Carlson, and they're going to try and use his words to attack him with that hit piece. And so this journalist reaches out and says, good day, Mr. Carlson. I hope you're well. I'm from the New York Times. I wanted to give you an opportunity to comment for an upcoming article that takes a look at how political commentators have discussed the upcoming election on YouTube. We rely on analysis conducted by researchers at Media Matters for America. Could you provide us with a comment or decline to comment by end of day tomorrow, blah, 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 blah. And here are the points to include. Media Matters identified 286 YouTube videos between May and August that contained election misinformation, including narratives that have been debunked or are not supported with credible evidence. Researchers identified videos posted by you in those 4 months that contain election misinformation. We feature a clip of you saying, all the sadness we've seen after the clearly stolen election, all these bad things happen, but people know I love each other. People I know love each other more. I also have a few questions. Are you a member of the YouTube Partners Program? If so, how frequently does YouTube demonetize your videos? Has YouTube sent you messages or emails or notices in the last year that your content contains misinformation? And then basically Tucker tells him to F off. So he says, the New York Times is working with a left-wing hate group to silence critics of the Democratic Party. Please ask yourself why you're participating in it. This is why you got into journalism. It's shameful. I hope you're filled with guilt and self-loathing for sending me a text like this. Please quote me. Thank you for your prompt response. Would you like to address any of the points or questions above? Would I like to participate in your attempt to censor me? No thanks. But I do hope you'll quote what I wrote above and also note that I told you to F off, which I am now doing. Thanks. So there you go. It's kind of funny, right? Tommy Robinson, who showed a movie detailing the Islamic rape gangs, grooming gangs in the UK. He got jailed for 18 months for that. So that's not great. Like, that's not a very good outcome. Right? I don't think that's a good outcome at all. Tommy Robinson has been jailed for 18 months. The UK has fallen. I'm out of words. So that seems, it's not good. It's certainly not good. It's certainly very, very bad as far as free speech outcomes go. And some people say that Tommy Robinson is an Israeli asset. He may be, who knows? I think that the things that he's exposing are important. And it's interesting that the United Kingdom is responding in the way it's responding. They say that he's an Israeli asset because he's been to Israel a bunch of times, and he was talking about the Gaza thing really forcefully, and he's very much against the Middle Eastern, the importation of more Middle Easterns into the UK, Middle Eastern people into the United Kingdom, claiming that it's changing the culture, and I think he's correct. And the same thing's happening in Canada, but we've got Middle Eastern, Khalistani Indian, Hindu Indian, and Muslim. So like, what are we doing? It doesn't make any sense. We're building a recipe for conflict is what we're doing, which again doesn't make any sense. But that's what's happening in England. So I don't know if he's an Israeli asset. I don't know if he's a drunk or I think he's a recovering alcoholic. I don't know if he's on pills or anything like that. I've never met Tommy Robinson. There's a lot of accusations thrown his way, but fundamentally, like, what he's exposing, I think, is important, and like, people are flawed. All that said, make up your own mind about it. I don't know, but it seems pretty crazy to have somebody go to jail for exposing other people grooming and raping girls, right? Crazy stuff. That's crazy. The whole world's crazy. Let's move on. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful